Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how I set up this fully bioactive setup for my legless lizard, Lieutenant Dan. At the start of this, I do have a mixture of both live and fake plants until all the live plants really start to grow in, and then I will remove the fake plants. We will have isopods and springtails for our cleanup crew. We have hide spots, drainage layer, and all the things needed for a fully bioactive setup. Okay, to start the build, first you need to figure out the size of enclosure that you're going to use. For me, Lieutenant Dan is not that large, so I'm going with an enclosure that is approximately a 20 long aquarium. This gentleman that I purchased from, he makes them with sliding glass doors on the front, which is perfect, and he has a custom fitted screen lid on the top of the enclosure. So this is the base setup that I'm going with. Now that you have picked the enclosure, we need to get the measurements so that way we can start building the false bottom. So the product I'm going to use to help create the false bottom is this white gridded material, which is called either a light diffuser or egg crate, and it can be found at your local home improvement stores. Okay, so here is just a quick clip of where you can find this at the Menards store. It's often found in the back with the drop-down ceiling supplies. Okay, so this product can be easily cut to size with just hand clippers like this, although I would recommend maybe a bandsaw would work a whole lot better, but if you don't have access to power tools, this method does work. This is why I would prefer a bandsaw, but if you use clippers, sometimes you will get these little points and you want it flush like this end here. One way I have found to clean up that edge is this very unsafe way of sanding them down till they are flat. I do not advise this. Do this at your own risk. Okay, so the next thing I picked up was this landscaping fabric. This is just what's easily available for me, so that's why I use it. And its purpose will be to separate the space underneath the false bottom from our soil. We don't want the two to mix together. So this has holes that allows the water to drain out, but yet holds our soil where we need it to be. A fuller explanation of that will be coming up a little bit later in this video. So with your landscaping fabric stretched out and on your workstation, we're going to then go get the egg crate, and we're going to just kind of place it in the middle of the landscaping fabric, because what we're going to do here is we just want to attach that fabric to the egg crate. And I'm just simply going to use a low temp heat gun here, or a glue gun, but you could also use silicone. I've used that in the past, that works well. But I find the hot glue gun, you can work with it a little bit quicker, whereas the silicone you would have to wait approximately 24 hours or so for it to dry before you can move on to the next step. Once the fabric has been secured to the perimeter of the framework, which is the light diffuser in this case, next we are going to cut the fabric. Now what I like to do is to leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of excess fabric around the perimeter, and I will explain more on why I do this later on in the video. But just take note Do not do this on the wife's kitchen table. You will be in a lot of trouble, and don't blame me because I warned you. Okay, so now that I've flipped the false bottom back over, now I'm going to be placing what I use for the spacers that elevates the false bottom off the bottom of the aquarium. And in this case, I am using 1-inch PVC pipe. I find that this is probably the cheapest and effective way to create this. And I'm just going to simply glue it into place here. If you don't fully understand exactly what's going on, again, it will all come together at the end of the video. But essentially what this is for is we need an airspace between the true bottom of the tank and your soil. You need a spot for excess water to drain out of the soil. So that's what this will create. This will create that space, that void underneath the soil to allow that excess water to drain off. So I'm just using the hot glue gun again because, again, it's just the quickest way to attach this stuff together and that I can still work with it in a relatively quick pace. You can use the silicone, but like I said before, you will have to wait for it to dry, and that's typically overnight. So I've just been using the hot glue gun. So this is just a different angle that you can see how I'm gluing this on. I just simply lay down a bead of hot glue, and then I'm just going to simply roll the pipe over onto it, and then you just simply let it dry or cool, and it's attached enough to hold itself into place to serve its purpose. Okay, now once all the feet or the spacers have been attached, I have flipped the base back over, and I'm simply using just painter's tape here, and we're going to pull that excess that we placed on here, that we cut on here, and just simply tape it back. This just makes it easier for when you're placing it inside the tank, that it doesn't get caught up on the sides and get tucked under. We want this to stay on top. Okay, so with the workstation cleared, we're going to bring the enclosure back in to frame here, and then we're going to place the false bottom inside. So I gotta take the top off, and I typically paint my sides and back this black color. There's no real reason for it other than I just like the way it looks. So with that removed, and we're going to push this tank to where we can see it a little bit better. And then I'll show you how I lowered in the false bottom. So with how these doors are, I have to come in up over the top, but there you can see the 5 different feet there to help elevate this platform and to create the false bottom. So it is a tight fit, which is what you want. So it's kind of a snug fit. So there, now you can see the tape, and I'm going to bring you in a little closer, and we'll pull this tape off and I'll explain. So once we get this tape off, you can kind of get the idea of why you wanted the excess fabric here, and that's to you're going to lift it up and push it up against the sides just like you see on the back, and this will help prevent dirt from, or your soil from getting down in the sides there and getting underneath the false bottom. So kind of creates a little basket or a little bowl shape, and it helps just keep it contained. So, and then now looking at from the outside, there you can see that there is a space or a gap underneath there. and that is your false bottom. Okay, so I'm not going to go into much detail on exactly what my soil mixture is, but just simply look up ABG and that will tell you exactly what the substrate is here. Now typically when you do a full bio setup with live plants, you're going to want a deep soil bed, somewhere around 4 to 6 inches. Now in this setup, I'm not going to get that deep, but the plants that I plan on using aren't going to get very tall, as this is a shallow aquarium anyways, so I'm going to go with a slightly less amount of substrate, but you'll get the idea once you see the finished product. So I'm adding in the sphagnum moss, and that's just to help with holding moisture in the soil. And then we're also going to add the leaf litter. Now this is just for the legless lizard to crawl around in, and also to help fuel the bioactivity of the setup. Okay, so something I want to touch upon, and that is lighting up this environment. Now, many people keep legless lizards without any kind of UVB light, and while I'm sure that's perfectly fine, my thought is this: I am going to put a light on this environment so that way I have that viewing pleasure to be able to see inside. So I figured if I'm going to pay to have it lit up, maybe I should just add a little bit of UVB, and just in case the animal does actually need it. If it doesn't, this is only 7% and it's not a very large bulb, so the animal can, move around its environment and not really be affected by this. However, if the animal does choose to bask under this light to gain some of that UVB, then it's going to be there. So I guess the end of this, my thought is I'm paying to light the cage up. Let's just make that light have potential positive benefits with a UVB and go with that. Again, I'm not saying that the animal absolutely needs it. From my research, it is unclear to me whether or not I should have it on there. So I'm just going to put it on there again because I'm going to light the cage up either way. So why not just go this route? I don't believe it's going to hurt anything. Okay, so now here is the fun part, at least the fun part for me, and that is setting up the decor in your new established bioactive setup here. So we just kind of move things around. I'm using this turtle shell as a hide, one of many hides. And then I've got this log here that I want to place in here. I'm going for a woodland type theme with the leaf litter and whatnot. So that's kind of what I was going for, and I think I pulled it off fairly good. Of course the plants need to grow in. So as I try to fit this log in here, I accidentally knocked this GoPro over, and unfortunately that is all. Okay, so here we go. Here is how the layout ended up. You can see there at the very bottom the gap in between the soil and the true bottom of the cage. That is where the excess water will drain out of the soil if I were to over water this setup. And looky right there in the middle of your screen, I'd say he's liking his new setup. One final thing I'm going to add here, and that is the Isopods. These guys will be the cleanup crew and be a little morsel from time to time for the legless lizard to snack on.
Shut up and sit down.